The city woke in a riot of colors and sound. Lagos throbbed like a living heartbeat, each street a pulse, every honk and shout another rhythm in the symphony of ambition and survival. Morning sunlight broke through the narrow gaps between high-rise buildings, reflecting off puddles left from the night's rain. Smoke from roadside suya grills mingled with the scent of damp asphalt, and the hum of scooters rattling along the streets filled the air with energy and chaos. Amaka stepped out of her cramped hostel, her bag slung over one shoulder, notebook clutched in her hand. At 23, she had the kind of energy that refused to bend to circumstance, the sort of determination that made her chin lift even when the weight of Lagos pressed down on her. She had come here for one reason: to act, to shine, to be more than the ordinary life her neighborhood whispered she was destined for. Auditions had become her religion. She carried a portfolio of headshots, worn scripts, and an unwavering belief that talent could cut through the corruption and nepotism that tainted the industry. And yet, each day was a reminder. Beauty opened doors faster than skill. Charm could outweigh ability, and opportunities were often disguised as favors. That morning, she arrived at a glossy studio tucked behind a narrow alley off Victoria Island. The receptionist, a young woman with perfectly manicured nails and a disinterested smile, barely looked up. "Next," she said. Amaka's heart thumped, not with nerves, but with the quiet thrill of hope. Inside, the audition room smelled of coffee, stale perfume, and ambition. A panel of producers and casting directors watched the stream of hopeful actors with casual ruthlessness. When her turn came, she stepped forward, posture straight, eyes bright with conviction. She delivered her lines with the fervor of someone who had lived every emotion she portrayed, someone desperate to be seen for what she could do, not just what she looked like. It was after the audition that her life took a sudden, unexpected turn. "Amaka, right?" A voice, smooth, deep, and commanding, cut through the lingering chatter of the room. She turned to see him, Mr. Obinna, a producer whose name alone carried weight. Tall, impeccably dressed, with a presence that filled the room without effort, he extended a hand. "I've been hearing about you," he said, eyes scanning her with a curious intensity. "You have potential." Amaka felt a shiver of pride. "Thank you, sir," she replied, careful to hide the flutter of excitement in her chest. He smiled, a slow, deliberate smile that made her pulse quicken. "Talent is rare. Beauty is common. But a combination? That's dangerous." His words were a brush of silk and steel. Flattery, yes, but tinged with the unspoken. For days after, she couldn't stop thinking about him. Messages arrived, dinner invitations, casual coffees to discuss your career, and calls that left her stomach tight with anticipation. Each encounter was intoxicating. She told herself she was in control, that she could navigate the seductive corridors of power without losing herself. And for a while, she did. The first dinner was at a rooftop restaurant overlooking the city's glittering skyline. The night air was cool against her skin, the neon lights reflecting off the lagoon in the distance. Mr. Obinna spoke of film, ambition, and the struggles of artists in Lagos, his words weaving a narrative where he appeared both mentor and gatekeeper. Amaka laughed at his jokes, her hand brushing his briefly across the table, and the touch lingered longer than propriety allowed. As the night deepened, the conversation shifted. Compliments became more intimate, touches more daring, and the air between them thickened with unspoken promises. Amaka felt powerful, wanted, alive in a way that auditions and small roles had never offered. She told herself it was part of the game, part of climbing the ladder in a world that demanded sacrifices she hadn't fully understood. When she left the restaurant, Lagos seemed different, more alive, more dangerous, more intoxicating. The wind carried a hint of rain, and every shadow along the avenue seemed to whisper her name. Her reflection in a shop window showed a woman on the precipice of transformation, caught between dreams and desire, ambition and morality. Back in her hostel, she sank onto her bed, heart racing. Her notebook lay open, lines of dialogue she had been rehearsing untouched. Instead, her thoughts wandered to him, to the way his gaze had lingered, the soft command in his voice, the subtle dominance of a man accustomed to getting what he wanted. She felt a strange mixture of pride and unease. Pride that someone like him had noticed her. Unease at the realization that this attention came with an unspoken price. She closed her eyes and imagined the path ahead. Roles, fame, cameras flashing, her name in lights. And then, in the quiet of her room, she heard the faint whisper of a question she had not yet dared to answer. How much of yourself are you willing to give for all this? The first months were a blur. Lagos became a kaleidoscope of lights, parties, auditions, and late-night rides through streets that shimmered with neon reflections on rain-slick asphalt. Amaka had landed minor roles, each one bringing her closer to visibility, each one a small taste of the life she had always dreamed of. The energy was intoxicating, the sense of belonging to something larger than herself, addictive. Mr. Obinna remained a constant presence in her ascent. His attention was a magnet that drew opportunities her way. Invitations to private screenings, exclusive parties, and glossy magazine features became routine. Gifts arrived, designer shoes, handbags, and occasional envelopes of cash to help with expenses. Amaka told herself she was playing the game smartly, that she controlled the narrative. She reminded herself that she was using the system, not the other way around. But subtle signs began to emerge. The roles she was offered required more physical exposure than she expected. Dialogue had little substance. Her body was the centerpiece. Directors whispered about her commitment in ways that made her stomach twist. At first, she rationalized it. These are the rules of the industry. Talent alone isn't enough. The pressure came in many forms. Colleagues envied her rise, and not all of it was friendly. Some whispered about her relationship with Mr. Obinna, judging her behind closed doors, while others openly competed for attention, flirting and maneuvering for similar favors. Every interaction became a performance, every smile a calculated move, every compliment a potential trap. The deeper Amaka went into this world, the more intoxicating it became. One evening, at a luxurious penthouse party overlooking Victoria Island, she found herself in a quiet balcony corner with Mr. Obinna. The city stretched endlessly below, lights like fireflies, the ocean a dark ribbon in the distance. "You've adapted well," he murmured, his hand brushing hers in a deliberate gesture. "Some people falter when the stakes are high. You seem to thrive." Amaka swallowed, feeling both empowered and unsettled. "I'm learning," she said, careful to keep her tone light. He leaned closer. "Learning is one thing. Survival is another. Some will sacrifice their integrity for a role, for attention, for a name. Others, they endure and they conquer." His gaze pinned her. "I wonder, which one will you be?" The question lingered long after he left, like smoke twisting through her thoughts. That night, as she lay in the soft confines of her apartment, she realized the thrill of being noticed, desired, and rewarded had a weight she hadn't fully accounted for. Her dreams of stardom felt real, almost within grasp. Yet the price was creeping into every choice she made. Work became a constant balancing act. Amaka juggled auditions and shoots while maintaining her image, carefully cultivating attention without letting it define her entirely. She watched as other actresses bent and broke for roles, the lessons harsh and visible. Some thrived, others disappeared from the spotlight, consumed by the very compromises they had made. Then came the pivotal moment. A blockbuster production, one that could catapult her into household recognition, offered her a lead role. The catch: it was contingent upon a private, intimate meeting with Mr. Obinna. He framed it as mentorship, guidance, and proving her dedication. But Amaka knew the unspoken demand. For days, she wrestled with herself. Every audition, every scene, every public appearance had prepared her for a world where beauty and compliance were currency. And yet, a small voice inside whispered, "Is this what you really want?" Her reflection in the mirror one morning offered no answers, only the silent acknowledgement of compromise etched into the faint lines of her features. She had tasted power, felt the rush of attention, and experienced intimacy that had felt both empowering and dangerous. But at what cost? Finally, she agreed to the meeting, a mixture of curiosity, fear, and ambition propelling her forward. The room was dimly lit, shadows accentuating the contours of his expensive penthouse. The air was thick with the scent of luxury, candle wax, polished wood, and a faint trace of cologne that lingered long after he had moved. He spoke of opportunities, visibility, and influence, each word weaving a delicate trap. Amaka listened, nodding, her heart pounding. The night unfolded with a tension that was both intoxicating and terrifying. She realized, in the quietest moments between conversation and command, that she was a player in a game far older than Lagos's film industry, one where ambition, desire, and morality clashed in every decision. By the time she left, the city had transformed again, reflecting her inner turmoil. The streets that once shimmered with promise now seemed lined with traps, each neon light a reminder of choices made and those yet to come. She knew the path ahead demanded more than charm and skill. It demanded resilience, cunning, and above all, the courage to face the cost of her own ambition. As she lay awake that night, the city humming outside, one thought refused to leave her. I am climbing, but how far will I fall? Lagos never slept. The city's energy pulsed like a living thing, relentless and unforgiving. Streets hummed with the noise of generators, traffic, and late-night revelers. But inside Amaka's apartment, silence pressed against her like a weight she could no longer ignore. The glow from the skyline spilled across her bed, illuminating the small, cluttered room that had become her sanctuary and her prison. The offer sat in her inbox like a guillotine blade suspended over her career. A lead role in the blockbuster production, the one she had dreamed of, but contingent upon her acquiescence to one final private demand from Mr. Obinna. She stared at the message, the cursor blinking like a heartbeat she couldn't match. For the first time, doubt was louder than ambition. She thought of the months that had led her here, the auditions, the parties, the whispered conversations in dimly lit rooms, and the nights when she had convinced herself that control existed. She had rationalized, justified, and convinced herself that this was power, the ability to leverage desire to climb, to win, to matter. And yet, with every gift, every compliment, every role she had accepted under his shadow, a piece of herself had been measured and weighed, not for her talent, but for her body. Amaka's phone buzzed, A message from a friend. "Are you okay? You've been distant." She typed back nothing. How could she explain the storm inside her? How could she admit that the very thing she had chased, recognition, visibility, fame, was now a cage lined with seduction and compromise? That evening she met her mentor, a seasoned actress who had navigated the treacherous Lagos scene without surrendering her integrity. They sat in a small, dim cafe, the hum of conversation, a distant murmur. "You look tired," her mentor said, eyes sharp and gentle. "And I mean more than just physically. Your soul looks weary." Amaka took a sip of her coffee, her hands trembling. "I thought I could handle it," she admitted. "I thought I could play the game and still be me. But every role, every compliment, every step forward, I feel like I'm losing myself." Her mentor nodded. "This industry doesn't reward talent as much as it rewards compliance, beauty, charm. It's currency. But you, what you're feeling, this resistance, that's strength. Don't trade it for a role, or you'll regret it in ways money and fame can never repair." The words sank in, heavy but clarifying. For the first time, Amaka saw the fork in the road clearly. One path led to compromise, applause, and hollow triumph. The other demanded courage, sacrifice, and the possibility of falling from grace, but preserving herself. The following days were a crucible. Every audition, every meeting, every glance from a director or producer was a reminder of the choice she faced. She rehearsed the lines for the blockbuster, her voice trembling, her confidence waning. The scripts no longer felt like a tool of expression, but a reminder of the cost she was being asked to pay. Then came the night of the confrontation. Mr. Obina's penthouse was a cathedral of luxury. Marble floors, golden chandeliers, and floor-to-ceiling windows that framed the Lagos skyline like a jewel. He greeted her with the same smooth, controlled charm, yet there was an edge tonight, a test, a challenge. "Amaka," he said, his voice low, measured. "You understand what is required for this role. Commitment, dedication." She met his gaze, the weight of months of manipulation pressing on her. "I understand," she said. Then, after a breath that felt like a lifetime, "But I can't. Not like this." The room went still. His calm mask flickered, just slightly, revealing a hint of irritation. "You realize what this means? You're risking everything. Your career. Everything we've built." "I know," she replied, her voice steady despite the pounding of her heart. "But I can't continue down a path that compromises who I am. My talent, my effort. They should speak for themselves, not my body." For a long moment, he studied her, his gaze sharp and assessing. Then, with a slow nod, he leaned back, as if conceding a point in a silent game. "You are brave," he said finally. "Foolish, perhaps, but brave." The fallout was immediate. Gossip spread like wildfire. Roles disappeared. Directors whispered, casting calls passed her by. Friends questioned her choices, some expressing admiration, others suspicion. She felt the sting of loss, the heavy hand of consequence pressing down. And yet, in the quiet moments, alone in her apartment, she felt something she had not known in months: clarity. Her reflection in the mirror no longer carried the weight of compromise. Her eyes were her own, and for the first time, she recognized the woman staring back, resilient, unwavering, and unbroken. As Lagos's neon lights flickered across her walls that night, Amaka understood something fundamental. The price of fame was high, and she had almost paid it with herself. But courage had a value far greater than applause, and self-respect was a currency no one could steal. She did not know what the next days would bring. She did not know if doors would reopen or if the world would turn its back. But she knew with absolute certainty that she had reclaimed herself, and that, in a city that measured worth by compliance, ambition, and desire, she had made a choice worth more than gold. The weeks after, her confrontation with Mr. Obinna were quieter than she expected, yet far from peaceful. Auditions that once seemed accessible now felt closed off, whispers of gossip trailing her at every corner. Some friends distanced themselves, uncertain how to navigate the fallout of her choices. The glamorous world she had once been a part of seemed to have turned its back. But amid the uncertainty, Amaka discovered a different kind of power, the kind that didn't demand submission or compromise. She began accepting roles in independent films, low-budget productions, and theater projects where talent was valued over appearance. The scripts were raw, the sets modest, and the hours grueling. But here, she was measured for skill, dedication, and creativity. Her mentor, who had once warned her of the industry's hidden costs, became a steady guide. "You're learning something more important than fame," she said one afternoon over coffee at a quiet cafe in Lekki. "You're learning how to honor yourself. That's a rare skill, and when opportunity comes, it will recognize that." It was months later, during a small festival showcasing independent films, that Amaka's efforts began to bear fruit. A director, known for discovering fresh talent and uncompromising integrity, saw her performance in a gritty, emotionally intense role. He offered her a significant part in his upcoming film, one that promised visibility, critical acclaim, and the kind of recognition that came from merit rather than manipulation. Lagos's streets, once suffused with temptation and compromise, now felt different to her. The neon lights reflected her own clarity. The bustling markets, the endless traffic, and the hum of generators all seemed to echo the rhythm of a city alive with possibility rather than threat. And then, unexpectedly, she encountered Mr. Obinna again. He appeared at an industry event, his presence commanding attention as always. The room seemed to shrink around him, but Amaka stood firm. He approached, a faint smile on his face. "Amaka," he said smoothly, "I see you're still active, bold as ever." She met his gaze steadily. "I am," she replied, "and I'm learning to do things my way." A flicker of recognition crossed his features, perhaps a hint of respect, or perhaps irritation at the limits of control he once held. "Bold," he repeated, "dangerous even." "I'd rather be dangerous than lost," she said simply, turning away to the crowd of admirers and directors who had come to see her for her craft, not her connections. Her new projects gained momentum. Critics praised her performances. Social media began to notice her work for its authenticity, and invitations to larger productions arrived, not because of favors, but because of undeniable skill. She walked the red carpet again, but this time with a sense of purpose that had nothing to do with appeasing anyone or negotiating desire. In the quiet moments, alone in her apartment overlooking Lagos at night, she reflected on the journey she had taken. The city, with all its temptations, had tested her. The industry had demanded compromises that she nearly paid for with her self-respect, and yet she had emerged not broken, but sharpened, resilient, discerning, and fully aware of her own worth. The final scene of her journey unfolded on a warm evening, the city lights reflecting off the lagoon as she stepped into the premiere of a major independent film. Cameras flashed, journalists asked questions, and her name was spoken with admiration. But unlike before, it was her craft that was being recognized, not her connections, her beauty, or her compliance. Amaka stood at the center of it all, feeling the thrill of achievement, tempered with the calm knowledge that she had not traded her dignity for visibility. Lagos, in all its relentless vibrancy, had been both adversary and ally. She had learned that fame could be fleeting, influence fragile, and beauty deceptive, but self-respect once reclaimed was permanent. As she looked out at the glittering skyline that night, she allowed herself a quiet smile. The price of fame had been high, but this time it had been paid with courage, integrity, and perseverance. And for Amaka, that was worth more than anything the city could offer.